we were in an Uber Black, as I remember, and you and your daughter got out the car. But before that, we were walking to an ice cream place.
Yeah.
And Brian and I were walking ahead of you and his wife, Samara.
Right. I was walking side by side with Samara. That's right. Yeah.
Right, right. So Brian and I didn't think anything of you walking with her as we went and had ice cream, had a great time. And now I'll get us back to this Uber Black. We had dropped you and your daughter off in Georgetown, and we watched you walk away. And it was at that time that Samara says to Brian and I, guys, Henry came out. And we looked at her like, what do you mean he came out? We just watched him walk away. And she's like, no, you idiots. Henry came out of the closet to me.
Right. Yeah.
And we were like, what you talking about, Willis? Right? What do you mean he came out of the closet? And she's like, while you guys were walking ahead, Henry told me he was gay. And we were in disbelief. Yeah. I was in disbelief because there was absolutely nothing different about you at all. Right?
You hadn't seen me a long time, right? But I was basically essentially.
No, not basically. Essentially, you were just Henry, right?
Right.
Which is a great message for everyone because you're still just Henry. Nothing about you has changed to me, but it made me think about what your thought process was at that time, because it was obvious to Brian and I that you wanted Samara to tell us.
Yeah.
And that you weren't completely comfortable telling us yourself.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly.
And so I remember that night I texted you. And it was like, bro, what's going on? Either way, you know, I love you, but let's talk.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's right.
And that was just that's one of the most powerful moments in my life, was when Samara told us that. And the person that she was describing, the person she was talking about, I just have always had such love for you. You know, you and I, it seems to me like you and I have gotten along since moment one.
We have.
We laugh all the time. We talk about everything under the sun. You were
I was 17 years old when we met.
Right. You were
on campus. Yeah, we showed up on campus that August, and I hadn't even turned 18. I turned 18 that October.
You and I are a day apart.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's right. We're the same age.
We both missed the drinking age by however many weeks. Right. And the one thing about you is, you know, we were roommates sophomore year. I know you were interested in women then. I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I'm
not going to get into how I know or why I know, but you've always just been one of my favorite people. And to discover that you're gay, it didn't affect me at all, but it made me think about what it must have been like for you to want to share that information with Brian and I, and then how you were going to go about it. So please take me into your thought process on how you decided to come out to me and also Brian.
Yeah, no, and I think that, wow, this is very powerful. And I appreciate this, because when I think and talk about these things, it makes me grateful, because the journey that I've been on has not been easy. I'm smiling now, but those were some tough times. So, I mean, in 2015, I'd essentially been out for 7 years. Okay, I was married for 15 years, and I am very good friends with Evelyn, my former wife. We hang out. She was just here last week for Thanksgiving. My partner and I hosted Thanksgiving here at home. My kids were here. She was here. She was here with her partner. But, you know, from when I first came out in 2008 to this whole thing that I'm describing last week as a family Thanksgiving, a long journey. And in 2015, when I showed up at that reunion, I was always afraid to go back to Georgetown, um, because I was still not comfortable talking about this. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think part of it is people remember you a certain way, you remember them a certain way. And when you go to these reunions, it's almost like everyone's coming in and part of you is like you were frozen time, right? Like you're reuniting with people that you were teenagers with, but obviously all this time has passed and you don't know what to expect. So what you do is you kind of have this idea in your mind that you're just kind of picking up where you left off. And that obviously was a huge piece of information that you wouldn't have had and I wasn't comfortable talking about. So couple things. Wanted Evelina to be there, my daughter, because she herself was starting to think about college. Not quite. She was a few years away from that. But I wanted her to check out Georgetown in DC because deep inside of me was, man, it'd be great if she went to Georgetown. It'd be great if she kind of ended up somehow going to school in DC, which she did, not Georgetown, but GW. And I wanted her to get to know some of my dear friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. So when I knew you were going to be there, Brian was going to be there, Samara, she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. And I think credit to Samara because as we were talking that night and hanging out, we were just talking about deep things about friendship. She made some comments about, wow, look at how you, Brian, and Sean, you guys are so tight. You're like brothers. It looks like you guys, like 25 years hadn't passed. It looks like you guys had just seen each other yesterday. And the more she talked about that, and the more she talked that way, the more and more the fear I felt about telling you guys started to melt away, right? She, in other words, was creating like a space and a vibe for me to really connect with her and be like, inside, I didn't plan on telling her or you all. It wasn't in the cards, really. I was thinking about it, but I couldn't work up the courage to tell you and Brian. But that conversation with Samara made me feel so comfortable. There's such a powerful human connection, genuine connection in her. The energy I felt from her, the love I felt from her, like, oh my God, Henry, I'm so glad you're here with Brian and Sean, and isn't this great? And that immediately made me feel like I cannot let this opportunity go by without me sharing something so important about my life. However, I still felt weird and uncomfortable and awkward about pulling you, Brian, or both of you aside and telling you directly. So at that moment, spontaneously, and it's funny because as a gay man, in many ways, even when you come out later in life, you're constantly coming out to somebody and you're choosing and picking when that happens and when it's appropriate, when you feel safe to do that. And so she made it feel safe for me. And I felt it was safer for me to just kind of break the ice with her first and kind of throw that out there at her, knowing obviously that she would tell you because I told her it was okay for you all to know. And so I just felt safer putting it out there with her